All right, kia ora. After a bit of a delay, we'll get started. So, kia ora koutou. It's my pleasure to introduce Scott Willis, who is well known to all of us at OERC, a repeat customer, sort of a familiar face. So it's very nice to be able to see you once again, even though you've got all kinds of other commitments going on in Wellington. So as I'm sure many of us know, Scott is the Green Party List MP based here in Dunedin. He's the Green Party spokesperson for energy, regional development, rural issues. And he has, of course, a long history of working in the energy space and community energy, Blueskin work there, and we're really pleased to have him to speak to us as a keynote this year. Scott, over to you.
Thank you, Sean. Now let's see. I don't think you really need me to do a lot of introduction, but I'll go over it really quickly. So kia ora koutou, ko Scott Willis aho, and as Sean said, now an MP, but have had a bit of experience in trying to shift the energy transition towards something that is going to improve well-being for all and decarbonise our energy system. So many years ago, established an NGO. Here we go. I can move on. That's a wee nod to the Dunedin Hospital. Just yeah. Many years ago, established an NGO to work on climate solutions with a focus on energy, but climate solutions in general, and that's at the that side with solar panels, putting solar panels on our little office. And during that time, also worked with EMH Trade, Jamie Silk, who's now an advisor to the Electricity Authority, on setting up a peer-to-peer electricity network, the Blueskin Energy Network, which lasted for 2 years before it was essentially stomped on by the gentailers. And that was the Blueskin Energy Network was to enable the peer-to-peer exchange, well, balancing electricity within a local network, within a low voltage network, to ensure that we could gain benefit from doing good. And it had a neat app. I'm sure most of you have heard the explanation before, but a traffic light app that allowed people to understand when was a good time and when was not a good time to use electricity, when they might be using dirty Huntly power. And that was also really important because it helped us understand that people were willing to use their electricity benefits for social good. So they could give some of the gains they got from doing good things to help climate safe housing, to help the local school, to help the Auckland City Mission, to help to put into social and environmental projects, trees that count. And another part of my career was working with Aotearoa Limited. Is anyone from Aotearoa here today? I haven't got any of my old colleagues, but Aotearoa in the Better Homes program, we ran the Otago Home Upgrade program through a contract through the COVID recovery fast track COVID recovery fast track program. Can't remember the exact name, which was looking at how to get to those people who are really hard to reach with home energy upgrades, with deeper home energy upgrades. And for those of you who want to dig into that, there's a great report that Aotearoa put out, and I was supposed to write it, but then I left. So I left them with a job to do, and they've done a fantastic job. It's a beautiful report, and it goes into some really interesting case studies about the complexity of that challenge. But I'm here to talk about the Green Party approach to energy. And our vision, we've got a couple of visions, one in housing, healthy homes within thriving neighbourhoods will be available to everyone so that people can be part of caring communities with a strong heritage fabric and easy access to the natural environment. And one of the things that we put out in the 2023 election series of plans that we used to promote where we're going was the Climate Safe Communities Plan, which looked at home upgrades and ensuring our streets and our streetscapes and urban design was suitable for a climate challenged future, where we would have more green spaces, more blue-green spaces, homes that, well, if you marry it with our clean energy plan, homes that could be connected through energy systems and could have a $6,000 grant to put on solar panels or insulate or double glazed windows or put in curtains or replace their gas appliances with electrified appliances so that we could move away from high emission, high cost technologies and machines and ensure we had a better thermal envelope in our homes to give people choice effectively, choice to make the right decisions with information about where they could go. So that was one part of our plan, and the other part of our energy policy aims to ensure that we are an energy sovereign nation where everyone has access to reliable, affordable, renewable energy from a democratised energy system, prioritising Māori community and public ownership over private profit. And that's really important. That's why I sought election, and that's the role I have within the Green Party to ensure that we make change, even in opposition, to develop an energy sovereign nation. And that's what I've been working on. That's what I've been haranguing Shane Jones about. That's what we are. Simeon Brown is hard to meet with, but I did have a chat with him a couple of weeks ago because I have a members bill in the ballot that I'm trying to get out of the ballot, and it's got a lovely, lovely short name, the Electricity Industry Separation of Generation and Retail Businesses Amendment Bill. But it will do exactly what it says it'll do, but the purpose of that bill is to erode the stranglehold of the four gentailers over our electricity market and enable merchant generators, community Māori generation to participate, enable more transparency in the market, to enable social retail to access hedge products, knowing where they sit in the market, to enable that innovation that has been struggling because we've had so many of those retailers that have been eaten up or swallowed up by the gentailers, 15 in the last 2 to 3 years that have just disappeared because they can't compete. So what are we confronting? We've seen the Warmer Kiwi Homes program in budget 2024 cut back by 178 million, I think, cut out of the Warmer Kiwi Homes program, which cut things like hot water heat pumps, the low carbon transport fund, the decarbonisation of transport fund. It cut a new program that was designed to get to those very hard to reach communities, that hard to reach cohort of people that we discovered when we were doing the Aotearoa Home Upgrade Program. There are people since the 1980s when we closed down institutions and threw people out into community care who are now living in squalid properties, but they distrust the state through what we've just seen recently, the state apology to institutional violence and trauma. Those people are still out in our community, living in homes without a great deal of support, and they distrust the state. How do we get to those people to ensure that they're okay, that they're not suffering greater violence, trauma through hardship, that they're not they're not engaged in bad practices, and they are everywhere in our community, and we just don't see them. So that program, which was going to be part of ECA's program, has been cut. And that's a tragedy. And having had the opportunity to visit many, many homes in the Otago region where we found things that we did not know were there, this to me is just an atrocious sign of how backward we have got with, try not to be too political, but we have the most toxic racist climate denialist government we have ever had. There we go. I've got that little bit out there, and now I'll try to wind it back and not talk about the bad stuff. At least it's not America. Thank you. No, that is beyond satire. Here we have fossil fuels that are costing us more than $10 billion a year in our energy system that we can get rid of. We have a choice to get rid of, and this is simply a political choice. And at the same time, this past week, we're just at the end of a 3-week sitting block. We've been debating all kinds of things. We went from the hikoi on Tuesday, which was a joyful, exuberant experience, through all of the morning, seeing so many people expressing their love for te tiriti and a desire for working together, and then walking into the house where everything's buttoned down, everything is very, very controlled, and then we start debating opening up the Crown Minerals Act to open up coal mines, oil and gas exploration, Shane Jones loving on ensuring that we build an energy sovereign nation based around fossil fuels. And this is what we are confronted with a government that has designed, that has had a legislative program to throw out every bit of legislation the previous government had in place, and bit by bit now replace it with things that are going to cost us all and cost our children everything if we are going to pay for missing our climate targets with overseas credits. And one of the projects that I am particularly concerned about is the waste to poison Searle project in Waimati, that where we've got a company that has come in and has been looking around for relatively isolated rural communities to build a waste. They're called waste to energy. The nice term is waste to energy, where you truck in waste, plastics, anything that's thrown out, and you burn it at high temperatures, which causes, of course, particulates into people's, if you breathe them in, enter into bloodstream, particularly bioaccumulate in fetuses. It may well add dioxins to the dairy farms in the locality. The schools are opposed, iwi's opposed. The local council has written to the minister to take this project out of the fast track legislation, because we have, I think it's 153 projects that have been assessed through the new fast track legislation. We haven't yet seen them all, but we know they're there. We know some of them are there, and they are being approved through a fast track process that might take about 3 hours to do an assessment. And this is an abrogation of responsibility in the extreme. And then if we look at the work that there's been a couple of reports over the last couple of years, the Generating Scarcity report, many of you will be familiar with, looking at the excessive gains that the gentailers have made. I do feel this is a bit of a downer part of the lecture, but there we go. We'll get to some more positive stuff. But I do think it's important to know that we have 4 gentailers that for every $1 invested in new renewable electricity or energy capacity, $2.41 is paid out to shareholders and dividends. That's the problem with that, is that when we have a government that is in austerity and is desperately trying to find resource to pay for things and can't find it because it won't raise taxes, it needs that dividend to come back in. So you can possibly see why I might have some challenge in getting my bill through the government. They're on a line. They've got a direct line of a drug of some money that they need to keep going to do everything else that they're trying to do. You know, who knew that landlords needed $3 billion worth of support because they're doing it so hard? Who knew that Philip Morris was really struggling and needed another 218 million to help them out? This government is struggling with their resources. So that side of the energy challenge is something that we all have to confront, that there are excessive gains. They are not going back into renewable electricity generation. And when we hear that there's new renewables being built, they are, but only at a pace that is not going to get the fossils out of our electricity system. Because the fossils, as I'm sure everyone knows, in our electricity system means that hydro, wind, solar gets top dollar. It gets paid out at the price of that coal or gas that is supporting the system. So we don't want to get, if we want to keep maintaining profits, we want to keep the fossils in the system. The problem with that is that it ensures we are still paying high prices, we are still having high emissions, we are still ensuring that the power lies with the four gentailers, and we are not getting the power out to the people. And what we've been hearing from the sector, from the Wind Energy Association, from infrastructure providers, what we've been hearing from around the motu is that there is real distress about this chaotic planning and legislative environment that we've got. We had a government that said it was going to deliver a new national policy statement for renewable electricity generation within 6 months of office. Well, we're a year in, there's nothing to show for that. We heard that we were going to get a national energy strategy by the end of 2024. We are at the end of 2024. There is no national energy strategy. Nobody believes that Simeon is going to deliver a national energy strategy. We all expect there'll be 3 pages of this is what I'm doing, but no national energy strategy. And this is really concerning for everyone, not just those of us who are concerned about energy hardship or energy poverty, but even the big guns who want to see some certainty about what's going to happen in the future, certainty to know to invest in new renewables, certainty to know where it's going to happen, and there's essentially a problem in that we've got a government that is acting in such an ad hoc way, chaotic way, that it breeds concern and uncertainty and is holding back the transformation we need in our electricity system, the transformation we need to deliver energy well-being for our communities. It is holding all that back because nobody knows what the hell's going on. The one little bit of good information we had recently was Shane Jones throwing 60 million at supercritical, super hot geothermal. But it's like, you know, here's a little bit here. I don't know what it's going to do. Over here, we're going to do oil and gas and coal, and we want waste to energy. There is no strategy. There is nothing to show us some sense in what this government's doing. And this is the impact. This is the impact of what we're trying to, what this government is leading us to. We have had not so long ago the recent flooding event in Dunedin, where the city was cut off from every main road, and we are opening up that. opening up that for future generations. This is what the government is offering us at the moment. We have, not only that, we've had a stripping of our public service that ensures that we no longer have much capacity within our public service to manage adaptation, to manage any of the work that's happening in the CRIs, GNS cuts, NIWA cuts. We have seen cuts across the spectrum of public service because the argument is that there are too many bureaucrats and they're not doing the work. And of course, when we lose that skill and that capacity and that institutional knowledge, we lose the capacity to act at pace. So we have seen we are not simply seeing greater climate impacts, we've seen the job losses in Penrose, Kinleith, in the Ruapehu area with pulp and paper mills cut down. One of the big contributing factors has been the high energy price, the energy crisis that we've had through winter. Not the only factor, but the government has refused to intervene in that. And if we think about where intervention could have come, we've seen government intervene to support Tiwai in the past. But we also have CRIs like Scion, who could be called on to help look at how, and an opportunity, a crisis can be an opportunity to look at how we can transform our manufacturing of bulk produce into value added to help boost our bioeconomy. And these are options that government has at their fingertips that they have refused to use. We've seen, of course, more support for the gentailers, and the real concern that we have right now, because of the lack of investment in new renewable electricity generation, and the idea that when the rain began, everything was okay, that the energy crisis we had in 2024 is going to be repeated in 2025. We have already seen future pricing heading up. So anyone who's moving or is moving to a new property or is taking on a new provider now will not find the same price as they currently have. Prices are going up. Future prices are already going up. So they're starting to move through into household impact. So talk about cost of living. That's really going to be the hard one. Oh, where have we gone? Oh, that one. Here we go. Thank you. So from a Green Party perspective, we're not working on simply a review. I had yesterday in the Environment Committee Select Committee a petition of 350 Aotearoa for the government to support 750 megawatts of community energy, develop a strategy to develop 750 megawatts of community energy and to deliver that. And the Electricity Authority came to talk to that to Select Committee to talk about this. Maybe I'm not allowed to talk about this because it's in Select Committee. Anyway, I think the point I'm trying to make is that we don't simply need another review. What we need to do is think about how we are going to reinvent our electricity system to suit the 21st century, where we have the opportunity of digitalization, where we can have the cheapest renewables that will ensure we have better prices and certainty, where we can create longer term hedge products to give industry and business guarantees into the future so that we don't lose jobs. so that we can support those social retail models like Toast Electric and Ngau Mai Rā to both provide electricity and build energy well-being into their communities' homes, where higher net worth individuals are effectively supporting the good work of the Sustainability Trust, who does home energy audits and installs insulation, curtains, etc. That's the type of reinvention that we need, and what we frustratingly are seeing at the moment is more an approach to do yet another review. Kick another review down the line. And one of the things that I previously said is that Electricity Authority has some tools that it can use right now, even though we want to see things move a lot faster, and it should be employing them. And one of the risk factors is that if the Electricity Authority simply asks for industry insiders to come and give input into the energy system, it's not going to get the stuff that's at the bleeding edge. It's not going to understand where the opportunity lies, where those experiments have been tried and sometimes failed, but where people have been pushing against the system to try and make change happen. So what I would encourage the Electricity Authority, if anyone's listening today, to do is to engage with those people who have been working at the bleeding edge, those people who are trying to make change happen, to do a workshop or a series of workshops to understand what the sticking points are. I've mentioned my members' bill with the really catchy name, and that is to break the monopoly of the gentailers. And I think we had through the last government the work on the battery project, the big battery project, which got cut off with the new government. And while there were real problems with a singular focus on pumped storage and green hydrogen from the previous Labour-led government, there was work to look at a portfolio approach. And we are going to need almost certainly some smaller scale pumped hydro to support a fully decarbonised energy system. So we need to look at what we are going to do in the future. We need to look at where that would be located and how that will support a system based on hydro assets to both firm and provide a peaking support for a decarbonised, not electricity system, but energy system, and to soak up any excess solar and wind that we are building with also the strength of our geothermal resource. And we have a fantastic geothermal resource. It's not emissions free, but that's one place where carbon capture and storage can be effective at reducing emissions from geothermal. So there are so many things that we can unlock, and we are not taking action at the moment. But one of the things that I'd just like to signal today is that you might want to put the 8th of December into your diaries, because there will be a little announcement at that point that I can't talk about just now, but I'm pretty excited about it. And that's to talk about what we might be able to do and what we will be able to do when we are focused from either 6 months from now, when Winston stops being Deputy Prime Minister and all the shit hits the fan, or in 2026. So I have to say this. This was a picture of a very small part of the crowd on Tuesday, but when Parliament was filled, it was still filled all the way back down Lambton Quay. It was absolutely massive. what we are seeing is that we've had an election that is providing us with something that I don't think anybody who voted for these three parties who are in government ever anticipated. So clearly a vote matters to where we're going. And I won't labour the point. I'm not asking for votes, by the way. I'm just suggesting voting helps where we're going. But I also want to focus on Sun Tzu from The Art of War, because I think I really like this quote. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity, and that's what really fills me with hope. At the moment, Greens are sitting in opposition. Opposition is a frustrating time when we're dealing with the toxicity of this government, but we are doing our best to work across the aisle, to work with members of the government that are not so far down the denial rabbit hole. And there are some individuals. There's potential there. But I also have the opportunity and the luxury now as a parliamentarian to go out into communities and see what's happening. And this is the thing that is such an honour and a privilege I have. And I've had the opportunity to go out to the Otago Peninsula Eco Restoration Alliance project down on the peninsula to see not just the hoiho and the penguins rehabilitation and the education centre, but the project to put solar on that 70, I think, James, correct me if I'm wrong, 70 kilowatts of solar panels or something eventually at that ecotourism site to decarbonise their business, but also eventually, ideally, when we have some shift in the electricity market and the way we can do things, to help power that end of the grid, to provide some support to the end of the grid. You might have read that the Green Party MPs got stuck recently in Kinloch because the road washed out. But Kinloch Wilderness Retreat are doing a really cool thing, electrifying their business with solar panels, with support for EVs, trying to get electric boat transport across the lake. They are really working hard. There are businesses who are doing so much to both improve their business, their cynically possibly branding, but it's not that cynical when they are actively investing in decarbonising their whole program and making sure that people have a good experience in what they're doing. So those are hospitality businesses. But then I think of ANSA, a small company based in Canterbury, engineers, a couple of engineers who are working to help EDBs, our electricity networks, understand what the future infrastructure will be for their networks when we have a fully electrified economy, when we have what we have right now that is happening in a organic way, more PV plus batteries, more EVs, better time of use for homes, more energy literate community, what that will mean for our electricity networks. So how can they plan so as not to overbuild transmission and then we all have to pay the cost, to build to what the future is going to look like. So this is future planning. And this is happening because we are now seeing business, industry, ordinary people, communities wanting to do things that government is not able to do or not willing to do at the moment. And I think the thing that really excites me, because the government not only stripped money out of ECA, it also essentially emptied the Community Energy Fund. The Community Energy Fund through through 2 budget cycles, had grown to 46 million and was about to be deployed effectively through the Community Energy Network. Budget 2024 took the vast majority of that. Some had already been spent directly, but it took 31 million out of that, essentially emptying the coffers and put it into tax cuts for landlords, etc., as we know. And some of you may have received an extra $4 a week in your tax cut, I'm not sure. That came out of the Community Energy Fund, and it came out of ECA's Hard to Reach program, and it came out of so much more. So that was a real blow to the Community Energy Network, to the ambition for community energy. But what came out of the industry, Orion, working with Ariake and the Community Energy Network, set up a community energy accelerator program in Canterbury and invited, I'm not quite sure how many small-scale community ambitions to come up and to get mentoring into what they could do to boost their own energy security and energy supply and energy resilience in their community, and gave awards to the best projects out of that. And that model of EDB investment is now being looked at by other EDBs around the Motu. So when I think in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity, we need to be looking sideways and not simply looking up at what the government's doing and getting disheartened by that, because there is so much happening out there in the community. There are so many good stories, because some of this is absolutely inevitable. It is going to happen. But if we don't pick up the pace and make it easier and faster, we still have an emissions profile that is going to make the future very, very challenging. So we have a very small window of opportunity. Let's take those wins where they are. Let's boost them as much as we can. And let's make sure that we hold this government to 1 term or less. I think that's enough from me. And I'm not sure how I've gone for timing, but I'm open to any questions.
Yeah. Kia ora, Scott. That was great. Because we started a bit late, what I'm going to suggest is we steal some time from morning tea, so that we have a bit more time for some questions, and then we'll get back on track after that. Hopefully that's okay. Questions? Michael, can you?
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Great talk, and I love thinking about strategy and the whole system level stuff. One point you made was that you feel that this government has no strategy, but I would actually argue there are some strategies to be led by industry, and also to devolve central power to the regions. These are two things that have been pretty consistent. And I wonder, in the spirit of Sun Tzu, or I'm sure I didn't pronounce that correctly, but is there not a way to harness those strategies towards community energy goals?
That's a really good question. I think we've heard the government say that they like localism, and yet we've seen the government stop the Otago Regional Council notifying its land and water regional plan because they didn't like it. We've seen the government decide that the Dunedin Hospital is too costly and step in and renege on its promise to build that. So I don't think this is their strategy as such. I think they say one thing and they do another. But if we can hold them to regional things, particularly Shane, I mean, let's be honest here. Shane Jones will use the Regional Infrastructure Fund to buy votes. Everyone knows that. if you are in a region where you can access the Regional Infrastructure Fund, you should definitely go to look at those options and boost that. But this isn't a strategy as such. It's essentially opportunism. It's a place. The interactions with government you have to look at where the openings are and take them. But I wouldn't place any faith in what's being said. Look at the actions.
Kia ora, we've got a question online. Alex McMillan wondering, or would like to hear more about how the Jen Taylors stopped on the Blue Skin Energy sharing project. In brief.
Yeah, in brief. Well, I mean, it's essentially a problem with the inability for small retailers to get affordable hedge packages, so long-term pricing, and the risk of the spot market, and the challenge of having fossil fuels, which when we had the gas went out, and I think it was 2019, 20, we had a gas outage which saw a spike, and for small retailers who weren't well hedged or had an inability to get a good hedge, that was the killer. So at that point, that was the one killer for the Blue Skin Energy Network. The solution to that is to ensure that we can have longer term hedges, and we can have transparency in the market to see what is available in hedges, so that we essentially need to stop the internal trading between the vertically integrated Jen Taylors. There is one other point that I think I should make before I finish as well, and that is I have been on the other side. I have worked from the community sector for a long time, making submissions to Select Committee. I'm now on the other side, sitting in Select Committee, hearing from submissions, and I would say when anyone's making a submission to Select Committee, if you're an individual, you've typically got 5 minutes. If you're from an organisation, you might have 10 minutes, or if you're lucky, half an hour. Always leave time. Don't speak for the whole time. Leave time for questions, and assume that most people have read your submission who are sitting on the Select Committee. So go for the key points, 3 key points that you want to make, and leave time for questions. And if you know somebody on the Select Committee, you're likely to find friends in Greens and Labour, but you might find friends in National as well. I don't know. Te Pāti Māori. You can contact them directly and suggest that they might want to ask a question of you to allow you to elaborate, or they might contact you. You use Select Committee to get your voice to government. It's really, really an important tool, and there's a lot of work that happens in Select Committee that people don't see, that is helping to change our energy culture, and we are working really, really hard through Select Committee. And I almost said something I shouldn't have before, but I just say it's really good. I would encourage people to use your power to submit.
Scott, just a quick question, probably just riffing a little bit off what Phoebe just asked you around the previous Labour government. They actually had a not bad structure there. They had 5 ministers that were looking at energy hardship, and so that was a bit of a opportunity to do some silo busting. That sort of maybe minimal success, but it was a good attempt, I think. And this National Party, as Phoebe said, wanting to decentralise, and we're not really seeing that either. But from a Green Party point of view, looking forward, how does a central political party support that decentralised, strong regional networks, which I think are critically important, not just for energy hardship, but community energy as well?
I would really encourage everyone who has a love for policy to have a look at our green energy policy, because the Green Party energy policy is quite unique in in the policy sense for political parties, in that it is focused on distributed energy resources and focused on democratizing our energy system. So that's what we are heading for. The nice thing is that National have said that they're interested in distributed energy resources. They've said it, but they're not doing it. We are also working really effectively within the opposition on the bigger energy plan, getting ready for government in 2026. So we are getting alignment. There are some things, and remember I mentioned the date of the 8th of December. That's quite an important date. We are working to ensure that there is alignment should there be a new government in 2026 or before.
There's two questions online that I think can be blended together from Brad Mudway and Stephen McKnight, asking about the wholesale electricity market and the thermal operators and their bid hedging practices to drive up residential prices, but why are industrial and commercial prices decreasing? And also, why is it that we can turn on coal and gas at any time, even when the sun's shining and the lakes are full? What role does the Electricity Authority play, or what role should the Electricity Authority play?
Yeah, well, the Electricity Authority has a mandate to ensure competition and security of supply. So they are focused on doing that. They are not focused on decarbonisation. So that's a statutory obligation they have, and that could change. That could change. So there could be a new statutory obligation. We have, because you can't just turn coal on and off, you have to have it burning just in case it's needed. So if you're going to have coal in the system. So we will always see that if we are going to keep fossil fuels in our system, and if we replace Huntly coal burning, for example, with biomass, we would still have the same issue. We'd still be burning some biomass. So there are emissions associated with that, but they are better emissions, better quality emissions, a bit like Vegemite and Marmite, but they are better quality. So the question is about the hedge market. Essentially, the longest term hedge at the moment is a 3-year hedge. That is not giving enough security to build new renewables, because you've got the capital investment and you don't know what your return on investment, you can't be certain of what your return on investment will be beyond that period. And typically for a new renewable project, it might be 5 to 7 years before you've paid off the capital. So you actually need those longer hedge packages to be able to raise the capital to build it if you're a merchant generator. So one of the things we definitely need to look at is those longer hedge markets. And I think the major energy users group, Karen Boyes, has talked about this problem with with industry, the need for better hedge products, the need for transparency in our electricity market, and the need for a power purchase agreement platform to help industry support the transition, because we have just a crisis in manufacturing as well. It's not just energy, we're emptying out our manufacturing capacity.
We'll take one more question.
Tēnā koe, Scott, ko Cameron Māori, taku ingoa. You mentioned at the top of your kōrero that there was a number of millions of dollars being stripped from the Ika Woma Kiwi Homes Fund. I'm just wondering if you could, is that already in effect, or is that something that's moving into the 2025 financial year?
So that was taken out, 178 million was taken out at budget 2024, was removed from Ika's funding. And so essentially we've gone, Ika's Woma Kiwi Homes program is back to basics. It's back to ceiling and underfloor insulation, moisture barrier, pretty much, that's pretty much it. There might be a little bit more, but it's back to a very, very simple program. And the problem with that is all of the low-hanging fruit, all of the easy to repair homes have been done. We're now into the really complex properties, and they're the ones that we really need. We need this type of approach. We need the approach that is a deeper, more complete retrofit program where community providers, Māori and community providers who are trusted in their community can do not just the material upgrades, but some of the social support that's needed to help build trust and work with communities and connect in the other providers who might, the whānau navigators who might be able to help people work their way through the system to get other support. That's the type of approach we really, really need, and there is no support for that. That was a new program that ICA was developing. That was stripped out at the budget. The irony is that Chris Bishop, National, he has previously supported the Greens funding boosts for warmer Kiwi homes under an MOU that we had with a previous national government. But this time they have not only not supported it, they have stripped the capacity for ICA to act. ICA still does a lot of good stuff, but it could do so much more, and it could do so much more with Māori, with community connectors, and it's not able to do that as well.
Kia ora, ngā mihi, Scott. Thanks very much, and particularly thanks for jumping up with very short notice. Please join me in thanking Scott, and remember to pay attention to December 8th.